Hi everyone, I wanted to make a quick video going over our next paper assignment, which is the AITA intervention argument. And so just kind of basics, it's going to be 4 pages double spaced, and it can be an MLA or APA style, but it is going to be a little more important this time to make sure you're choosing a style because you are going to have 2 required sources. One will be one of these Reddit posts, and another will be a source that you use to back up the argument that you're going to make. So let's get into it. First of all, just a heads up, I did make a sample essay that I shared with you in the assignment and in the module for this project. And this is something that I wrote a few years ago when I first assigned this paper. And so if you want to look this over, there's a link in the assignment description. Again, I wrote this paper based on one of these Reddit posts, and hopefully that gives you a little bit more understanding of how you can turn this into an academic essay. I shared this site with you as well in the academic description, or in the assignment description. So this is the website that we're going to be using. It's Reddit. If you haven't used Reddit before, this is a lot like old online stuff. A lot of the internet before was forums. That's what this is. And what people are going to do is they're going to post something that says AITA, which means am I the a-hole? And I'm going to say a-hole because, um, and then they're going to ask a question, AITA for, and then they're going to say something that they have done. And basically what they're asking is, do you think I did something wrong in this situation? And they're presenting us with a conflict, okay? They have had some sort of conflict and have been accused of doing something wrong, and they are looking to the internet to solve whether or not they really did do something wrong and what they should have done. There's a few different options for how people can respond to this. And if you click on any of these, you can see how people are responding. But here is a guide down here on the right side. If you scroll down, you can find how people vote for the different categories. So YTA, you're the a-hole. NTA, not the a-hole, meaning that the other person in this conflict is the a-hole. ESH means everyone sucks here. Everybody in the situation has done something wrong. And NAH means no a-holes here. In other words, nobody's done anything wrong. And surprisingly, that can happen in conflicts. Sometimes nobody did anything wrong. It's just there's a misunderstanding, for example. Okay. I'm looking at these. A lot of these are very adult. They might have cuss words, they might have violence or sex or other kinds of things in here that are very adult. If you would like a more cleaned up version of this site to be able to choose what you're going to analyze, please let me know. I can share that with you. I'm happy to do so. I don't want you to feel like you have to choose one that has any of those kinds of content that you might not be interested in. But if we look at these, this is a pretty short one. I would recommend getting one that's a bit longer because you are going to need to analyze this argument and try to figure out who is right and who is wrong. And you want to make sure that you can argue that. So if we look at this, this looks a little short to me. I probably wouldn't be choosing this one. If we scroll down, you can see how people have voted. NTA, meaning not the a-hole. That means that they have read this and they've determined that this person did not do anything wrong. Okay. If you keep reading down, there's a lot of questions, and that's probably because this person hasn't provided enough information. It's a very short one. Info. See, info is one that I left out, but this is something that you can vote, which means that this person hasn't given us enough information to be able to make a determination of if they had done something wrong or not. Okay, so you can kind of scroll through and get a sense of what the site is like. I can make another video too if that'd be helpful, just going over this website and how to look through it. What I would highly recommend is that no matter what, once you have chosen which one you want to write about, copy and paste the post into a Google Doc or some other document that you have access to, even put it on your paper draft, whatever you have to do, because I do not want you to lose access. People do come in here, they're not supposed to, but they do come in here and delete these when they realize that they were the a-hole and they're embarrassed. And so if that happens to you and you're in the middle of writing your paper, this has happened a few times where students have had to restart because they've completely lost access. Whatever you do, make sure you copy and paste the text of this into some sort of Google Doc so that you don't lose access. Back to the paper. You're going to choose one of these posts. It's totally up to you which one you choose. Like I said, some of them do have adult content in them. Don't worry about whether or not I allow that. You can write about whatever you want. If you would like to avoid that, that's also fine. You're going to summarize the dispute in your own words. In other words, I need you to tell me what each side of the story would say happened. And we'll talk more about that once we get into organization and strategies for writing the essay. Then you want to find a source. Like once you've decided who you think did something wrong, you want to find a source that you think backs up the position that you have. And for this project, a lot of people choose sources that are things like Psychology Today or something that has to do with like sort of interpersonal conflict. But it could be something to do with, for example, I've had students write about um, inheritance conflicts, and they've looked at the law to see, well, what does the law say should happen in this situation? And they've used that as a reference to then help support their argument. So it kind of depends on the case. And if you're having any trouble figuring out what kind of source to use, please let me know because I would be more than happy to help you figure out what would be helpful. You just need to have one source minimum. You can have more than that. And then you need to make sure that you have an intervention that is fair and decisive. You have to make a decision on who did something wrong. If nobody did anything wrong, that's fine, but you have to defend that position. And you can't kind of say, well, it depends, or I'm not really sure, or it's up to you to decide. You have to make an argument, okay? And then the last thing you want to do is make sure that you provide a recommendation for behavior moving forward. In other words, we're setting precedent by making a judgment on this case. So, for example, if for in the paper that I wrote, it's about singing happy birthday at a restaurant, at a fancy restaurant, okay, to a child. And in my deliberation of the case, I eventually decide that people should be able to sing happy birthday at a restaurant. I have a lot of evidence for why that might be true, and also that people can bring kids to restaurants, to nice restaurants even. And it's kind of dependent on the situation, but that I think that's fair. What I'm doing then is setting precedent to say in the future, if you are trying to decide whether or not it's okay to sing happy birthday in a restaurant or to bring a child to a nice restaurant, then you can look at this precedent that I've already explained. I said it is okay based on this evidence. Let's move on and let's apply this to the rest of our lives, okay? And so you can do the same with yours. We're going to have peer review on the 14th. It's going to be a 2-page draft. And then less than a week later, you're going to have your full draft due to me. And so just make sure that 2 pages is all that's required, but if you can get a little bit more than that, it's probably good. Down here at the bottom, you can see the rubric. The rubric is going to be a little bit more structured for this paper than for the last, and that's because this is a more academic genre. So I'm going to be grading mostly on content, just like usual. Do you have an a fair intervention that has really argued well? Your thesis statement alone is going to be worth 3 points, and that's because your thesis statement in a research paper is maybe the most important thing. You need to make sure that your argument's very clear, and that's why we will spend some time going over what that should look like, okay? Organization, you want to make sure that you have balanced the organization in this paper so that it doesn't feel like you're being unfair. Same thing with summary. You want to make sure that you're being careful about the word choice that you use, because if you are saying, if you, for example, if you name called one of the people in the case, even if you really strongly disagree with what they did, then that makes you look biased, right? You're not being fair. You're not really giving them a fair chance. And so you want to be really careful with the words that you use to make sure that you seem fair and that you've really tried to give everyone the benefit of the doubt in the situation, but that based on what you've seen, somebody did do something wrong. So you don't have to be completely unbiased, but you should make sure that your language makes you seem very fair in your judgment, not like you're coming in with a strong bias, okay? Research is going to be, again, you need 2 sources. One is going to be you're going to cite the Reddit post, and there will be information about how to cite that. And you can look at my draft for an example. And 2 is going to be a source that you use outside of that. You're also going to want to make sure that your formatting and everything is fitting MLA or APA style. And so if you have any questions about that, just remember that there are links to that in the, what is that? In the starting the course, that first module on the campus site. And finally, revision and editing, 1 point. That's going to be surface level stuff, making sure that you're using, academic language and things like that. It's 1 point. So if you make any of these kinds of errors, I'll make a note. I'll give you some guidance, but it's not going to totally tank your grade. Okay. I'm going to keep this short. So please let me know if you have any questions, and have a good day.